Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Disruptive Education live session with GETI or Global Education and Training Institute. I'm your host, Preena, and we have a very dynamic personality this evening with us as our guest speaker, Miss Suverchala Kashyap. Ma'am, she is an accomplished educationist, communicator, and a journalist from a very versatile background with her dual master's degree in botany and education, topped with a diploma in journalism and communication. She has been instrumental in defining a large part of the career goals of several students at school and university levels. She was the founder principal of a reputed school in Vadodara, have taken it to the national and international heights. And she has also served as a working journalist for around 10 years, adding certain objectivity and creativity to the overall gamut of her work. And she also authored several articles on social and environment issues, as well as education, that have been published in leading newspapers and magazines. Apart from this, she's also associated with many NGOs working with teachers of school for blind children, training them and redesigning their academic plan. And she has also conducted teacher training workshops as well for students across India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. And apart from being an educationist, she is an avid blogger. She is also an anchor at VNM TV Vadodara, and she anchors a show that's called Shiksha Ka Badalta Swaroop. And under her mentorship, she has trained children who have published many books. And today, she has joined us to talk on a very interesting topic that says, change your thoughts, change your life. That there's a very famous quote by Swami Vivekananda that we are what our thoughts have made us. So take care about what you think. Words are secondary. The thoughts live and they travel far. So today she will be talking about how we can change our lives by changing our thoughts. So I would like to welcome you, ma'am, on this platform of GETI, and without taking much time, I would request you to please take over the session.
Thank you so much, Preena, for that absolutely long description of me. And what you rightly said, that is the topic for today, that, words are secondary. It's the thought that starts it all, right? So first of all, I would like to thank all the people who are involved, especially Dr. Sunita Gandhi on the GETI platform. It is something extremely innovative, I would say, coming from somebody like Dr. Gandhi, who I've met on several occasions. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to be a part of the disruptive movement, because as the word says, it may sound a little negative, but it isn't. We need that little, kind of breakaway from time to time to bring about a change in society, and education certainly needs that. So just give me half a second. I am going to start with my presentation for today. Yes. And so I have, as mentioned, chosen to call it Change Your Thoughts, Transform Your Life. Now, one may think that this is something extremely magical, or it is something which is impossible. Well, that's not true. Because as Preena mentioned at the beginning of this talk, what are thoughts basically? So we are not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the psychology of it or anything, but we are just going to look at the simple aspect that as educators, as parents, as young adults, as children, what is it that we can do when changing our thoughts from no, I can't, or oh my God, this is not possible for me, to yes, I can, on a very elementary level. So the objectives of today's talk, I mean, please don't be overawed by the text on the slide, but basically some people prefer to read than listen, and we are all used to that aspect. So what is the importance of thought? What is the impact of thought? What are binding thoughts? How can we free ourselves from these binding thoughts? And why is it important to be oneself, right? And what is it that kind of stokes these or fuels these thoughts? Now, on a very simple level, if you take a look at it, like I said, I don't want to go into detail, but thinking is an intellectual exertion, okay, aimed at finding an answer. So if you take a look at the figure, it says, what is it? I'm thinking about something. We also know about the thinking man of Rodin, right? The sculpture which became so famous as that posture of, kind of putting a hand to your head and thinking. But what exactly is thinking, and how can we channelize it? How can we control it? How can we handle it? How can we cope? How can we teach children to think properly? So I express a little better in the form of poetry. So I have kind of put together something which I'm just going to, you can look at the screen, but I'll read it out to you. Drops that coalesce or disperse. So if we had to look at thought as a very physical concept, then they're tiny droplets, sometimes almost like moisture or vapor. And they coalesce, that means they come together and they form little other droplets, or they just simply disperse at the first instance. So thoughts are raw energy or nascent ideas with immense power, tiny pellets that guide, sometimes huge shadows that ensnare and devour. They are darker shades of feelings, tinting actions and behavior. When reined in, they create magic, making one soar, but if entrapped, can make one plummet to the depths of the tragic and the dark. The trick is to take charge, pause and breathe. Thoughts come and go, choose the ones to keep. So it doesn't mean that you have to stop a thought process. It doesn't mean that you have to only kind of slot it out into good thoughts and bad thoughts. No, thoughts are going to come to you very naturally. They're going to be negative thoughts, they're going to be positive thoughts, all kind of thoughts. So just kind of, they are akin, or you should try and match them with something like little drops in the atmosphere. And what is it that you want to coalesce? What is it that you want to collect? And what is it that you want to disperse? Just like the butterflies flying out of a jar. And if the jar is compared to your brain, then how do you perceive it? Well, it sounds very simple when we write it in the form of a poem, but it isn't complicated. If you try, you can really take charge of your thoughts. Now we come to the point of education. As to where and how I do education. So in education, if you take a look at the figure, there is a time, and we are all moving towards achieving goals. And many is involved with any particularly use the aspect of how is it affecting how is it affecting our self-esteem, how is it affecting our creativity. So what do we do? How do we move away from persistent conflict towards clarity? Is when you start kind of looking at the thoughts as individual little objects. And how can we do that? Is only when we step out of the triangle. You step out and you look at the whole scene as objectively as possible. Now again, as Buddha, Gautam Buddha, this quote is kind of attributed to Gautam Buddha, but that is controversial. We aren't very sure whether he actually said this, but something to that effect. What is more important is that the mind is everything, or as they say, mind over matter, or they say psychosomatic, right? Everything that we think up here kind of affects us. We've seen that even in this pandemic situation, not only in our country, but the world over. That if you had a slightly stronger mind, we are not contesting the fact that corona is very serious. It's a virus that is afflicting a lot of people. We are not talking about that. But we're talking about the fact that if you are strong, if your thoughts are strong, then the mind is everything. What you think, you become. What you think, you become, right? So thoughts create feelings, feelings create behaviors, and behaviors reinforce thoughts. So it's a cycle. It's this very vicious cycle that we need to be very, very careful about, right? Moving on. Now, the process of manifestation, see what thought can do to you, what thought can do to your manifestation. Suppose now, say somebody like me, and I'm saying this in a public forum, I tend to be a little lazy when it comes to the physical aspect of, exercising and things like that. So for me, the answer would be it's too hard to exercise. That's my thought, right? So I'm thinking, oh, you think I can get up in the morning? So the feeling would be, I don't really feel like it. Okay. And then the next thing would be, instead of getting up early and moving out, forget about exercising. My next thing would be, I'm going to take a nap. That's the action, right? And then on a negative note, every time that I step out and I see the fit people, what's going to happen? The result is I'm not getting in shape. But how am I going to get into shape if I am not able to manifest the thought in a positive way? Okay. So, or think of a thought which is a positive thought that yes, I can exercise. So, the linear, or let's say the cyclic thought process makes or breaks a moment, makes or breaks a situation, makes or breaks a person, is that one fleeting thought, right? So, therefore, thought, feeling, and action end up creating a process, an entire process of manifestation, which in some cases may lead to procrastination, in some cases may manifest as something very, very interesting. Now, this again is something which is, I'm just going to cover the aspect of thoughts which can be very, very unreal, thoughts which can be unrealistic, thoughts which can be, kind of demanding, and therefore we fall prey to a whole lot of thoughts which are negative. Now, demandingness and habits of the mind. Habits of the mind is one dimension of learning, which kind of talks about taking or addressing aspects of attitudes and perception, and then taking it to the habits of the mind. Wherein, if you look at habits of the mind, it's at the top of the circles or the oblongs that are shown over there. So what we usually do, unfortunately, in our system, and therefore something like the disruptive movement is very, very essential, is that we are stuck here. We are just stuck in acquiring and integrating knowledge. We rarely move towards using knowledge meaningfully. Now, how is this impacted by thoughts, right? So take a look now and put it in the form of children. So for children, a lot of expectations are put on them, and then and also on teachers, where it becomes we must always perform well and have everyone's approval. Other demandingness. So self-demandingness is that I kind of am under pressure all the time, that if I'm not performing well, if I'm not scoring well, then I'm either incompetent or unworthy. So we are very quick to label not only the thoughts in our head, but we are very quick to label people. We are very quick to label children, teachers, whatever. Then other demandingness. So what we do is, instead of us stepping out of the triangle, we are giving the rein of control to others. People we encounter must always be considerate and fair. So what happens? There's a problem with the system. Now take a look at what was floating around even in news recently. There was a whole lot of, halakula over the fact that teachers should not be paid, blah, blah, blah. A whole lot of things are happening around. Now, why? Other demandingness. But what happened? People who continued to believe in themselves, people who continued to just do their job with that one thought, that come what may, we are going to teach. Let everything else fall in place. So then you have taken charge of your thoughts. World demandingness. Now, like in Corona, you often hear of people saying that, oh my God, it is so tough. Now things have eased, but at the beginning of it, it was the thought, what am I going to do? How can I stay cooped up at home, right? So our life conditions should be enjoyable, hassle free, and safe. That is perfectly fine as a paradigm when we are talking about it in the context of a scenario as of today. But always, we cannot expect the world to change because of us. So, what is it that we do? We have to develop through our thoughts and our uh, processes in the head certain attitudes and perceptions, which will later become the habits of the mind. So I was talking to a couple of people in early March when the lockdown had just begun, and people were complaining left, right, and center. Oh, we can't step out into the streets, we can't do this. The world is becoming such an unbelievably funny place to be in. And my question to them was, can you not turn around this thought and look at it as a blessing? Okay, again, it sounds very easy, but take a look at where we are today. From March to October, we've learned to fight this new demon. Maybe not in the medical scenario, but in our heads. We are capable of working from home. We are capable of spending more time with our children. We are capable of doing quality work by just not moving out of our homes. So, what is it that we do? The demandingness should only be in your head from you to pursue a role or a passion that you have decided for yourself. This is a wee bit complicated in terms of a principle, but all the same, I hope it makes some sense to all of you. Now, I would like to just go back a little into history, or maybe I've just taken an example because it is such a beautiful example, and it has been, say, quoted in the Talmud, where it says, we do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. So thoughts create those feelings create those behaviors. So if I'm feeling low, if I'm feeling upset, if I am feeling the lowest of the low, what's going to happen? Everything around me is going to be, kind of like a blur. It's going to be dark. It's going to be horrible. But in that moment, like I said in the poem, if you just pause and breathe, take that little moment to think that, okay, fine, what is it that I want to do? So as it shows in this image, the painting comes up also with the horn, because it's kind of metaphorically shown over here that actually there's no horn in the scenery, right? There's just this beautiful tree and a whole expanse of verdant land. But what do you see? You see things as you are. So how do you get out of this, kind of catch-22 situation? It's like I said in the beginning, there is no magic wand for it. There is absolutely no aspect where you say that, oh my God, I'm going to think good thoughts and, that's the end of it. And I'm going to be a happy person, or I'm going to be a better performer, or whatever. It's not like that. It's a process. It takes time. So you have to strengthen yourself. You have to strengthen what you believe in, even though it may be at loggerheads with the world. So sieve your thoughts, you kind of select them very selectively. You move from one thought to another, and that slowly helps you to transform not only the kind of person you are, but your thought processes and therefore your behaviors. And it also pushes you to be that role model for somebody else who is looking up to you. So see the world as it is, not as we are. Now, coming back again to the aspect of education, and this picture kind of reminded me of, how enthusiastic children are when they first come in. And by the end of it, what is it that we do? Again, this may sound like a generalization, but by and large, this is what we do. We say something, but we do something absolutely different. We tell the children that we want you to be thinkers, or we tell teachers we want you to be thinkers. But do we give them opportunities to do that? As parents, we tell them, we want you to have an opinion, right? But where is that opportunity for them to manifest that opinion? Now, that opinion or that manifestation will only come to the fore if they are allowed to think. on a daily basis, if they're allowed to think, if they're allowed to break away from this herd mentality, it's, kind of everybody is doing the same thing. Uniformity, regimentation is very essential in education as in other fields, but individuality and creativity is equally important. And how do you do that? Where is the scope for dissent? Where is the scope for even thinking something different? So, as a child, what should you expect? And as an educator, what should you give? So, you should cultivate analysis, pros and cons, teach them how to handle every situation, teach them how to manage it on their own, and then also put into their environment very simply and slowly things like, do you want to be an active part of it, or do you want to be a reactive part of it, right? So when you're reactive, you're kind of hitting out at everything around you, but when you're active, there is a lot of thinking. And as the image on the left of the screen says, that before you speak or act, think, is it true, is it helpful, is it inspiring, is it necessary, is it kind? The last part is the most important aspect that we must have in our thoughts today. Are we kind to ourselves? Are we kind to each other? Are we kind to people around us who don't even matter, technically speaking, right? Take a look at what is happening to the world. But where is this? Where is this in our education? Where are we even helping or urging children to think in that direction? So that's a question that everybody needs to ask themselves, that are we inculcating the ability to analyze, to handle, and to cope? Extremely necessary. Coping is a mechanism that is a process, takes a lot of time to do, but we are not putting it into the environment of children. All we are pushing them is to the top of the triangle as shown in the previous image at the beginning of the speech or the talk, that you just have to achieve your goals. You just have to get to your goals come what may. According to me and my experience, that's a very, very warped, kind of way of looking at things. So now, what are thoughts? Just take a look at the image over here. Most of the thoughts that many of us kind of are afflicted with over a period of time are thoughts which, so we are not talking right now about the positive ones, but we're talking about the ones that kind of create this absolute back-breaking, energy-sapping load every single day. I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. I must not make a mistake. Who talks about the fact that mistakes lead, that's all philosophical, that mistakes lead to success and all of that. But when it's in a classroom scenario, or when it is in a real life scenario, a mistake is a mistake and cannot, it's not pardonable. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. So these are the kind of thoughts that most of us are afflicted by. So you have to ask yourself, nobody out there is going to be there 24/7 to help you out. Ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? For instance, the example that I gave about why am I not stepping out to exercise if I want to change the fact that I want to be fitter? Well, I got the answer in one go because to some extent I am a procrastinator and I know it. But I procrastinate only with things that I don't like. When it comes to my work, when it comes to writing, when it comes to anything else which kind of interests me, then I may not be a procrastinator. So we have to arrange those thoughts. We have to think about those thoughts, ask ourselves, then maybe take help from a mentor, take help from a teacher, from a parent, anybody. But we must get out of this, again, another very vicious cycle, which we are carrying every day. And it kind of absolutely drains us of the positive energy that each one of us is capable of. And I'm telling you this, that many teachers will agree with this fact, that even though they are doing a fantastic job every day, they are still carrying this load, right? So ask yourself that why are you carrying this load? Can I bring this thought out in front of me, put it on the table, address it, look at it, and talk about it? So we are actually, if you come to think of it, not just in the process of thought, but we are perpetrating a culture of irrationality. You know, take a look at, there was a talk in between about all these skin fair, make yourself fairer skins kind of going out, and there was this whole talk about them not going to advertise it. Just look at the pressure again that we are putting on young boys, young girls, the pressure of performance. And where did that come from? It came from a thought in somebody's head who wants to make some money, but look at what you're unleashing on the world outside. So we are constantly creating this culture of irrationality, where you have to ask yourself, is it okay to not be okay? I mean, why do I always have to be perfect? Why do I always have to be, prim and proper? Why can I not just be me? Right? So yes, we know the concept of time and place, that there is a time and there's a place for everything that you do. We understand that in the social norm, but we are talking way beyond that. We are talking about being in our head and being able to face our thoughts and do things that we want to do, which are going to benefit us as well as society and the world at large. So if you take a look at what's written in red, absolutely necessary to be loved by everyone. So what happens is a child, now when I look at it from a child's perspective, becomes someone who's always appeasing others, may not necessarily want to be that good person, but because he knows there's this culture of irrationality, and I have to be goody two shoes in front of my teacher, I have to be goody two shoes in front of my principal, I may be anything outside, I'm just giving the example of children, then what happens? What you're manifesting in the child's mind is that it's okay to be like this. It's perfectly fine to be a dual person, right? So the child goes on perpetrating that further. Now take a look at the other side. It is essential. So right from parents to teachers to society to the offices that you eventually work in will say, it is, one should be completely competent, adequate, and an achiever. Fair enough, understandable enough. But does it or does it not create an atmosphere of irrationality? And the base of the triangle that I talked about in the beginning, you know what is taking a beating? Every now and then, every single day, what is taking a beating is self-esteem and creativity. Creativity goes out of the window in this environment of irrationality. There is absolutely no scope for you to be creative because you have to follow the norm. So can we create an environment where there is more rationality, there is more analysis, there is more innovation, there is more creativity without affecting the self-esteem of people at large, particularly children? So what are the signs? What are the signs that we should watch out for? What are the signs that, what kind of thoughts should I watch out for? Or as an individual, anybody should watch out for? So the signs, the warning signs are, I am a failure. So a self-defeating thought is something that you should see very quickly. Look at it from all angles and think how you can transform it from a self-defeating, I am a failure thought to a thought that I can do it, if not completely, a little bit. So I may not become a marathoner, I may not run an entire marathon, but if I walk, is it okay? I mean, if I just walk about a kilometer, is that okay? So we have to break this self-defeating kind of a thought. Then you have thoughts which kind of, again, in this environment of irrationality, every single day, most of you must be reading the newspaper and coming up against, a lot of juvenile perpetration of crime. I don't even want to say crime particularly. Yes, there is a little bit of crime also. But what is happening? Because they are not getting a channel, because they're not getting an opportunity to put those thoughts out there, somebody is not there to listen to them. What happens? They have a whole lot of pent up anger. They have a whole lot of pent up rebellion. And it all begins with thoughts. A simple thought like, I don't like my teacher. But I don't have a forum where I can say why I don't like her. So if you are able to say why you don't like somebody or why you don't like a particular thing, there can be mechanisms to resolve it. So if we don't change these thoughts, a lot of antisocial behavior more is going to be visible in our society very soon, and is already visible. The other is dogmatic. Dogmatic, I would place a lot of parents, a lot of, again, please don't misunderstand, but this is totally from the work that I have been doing, where I see that sometimes parents refuse to see certain aspects in a child which are really beautiful, but they kind of fall into this trap of being dogmatic, where they have unrealistic wishes, right, to choosing the subjects when the children grow older in grade 11, whereas the child may have a different kind of a thought process, but that thought process has no use for the child because he or she is not being allowed to express it. Then you have unrealistic. For instance, if you take a look at the figure, it's funny because it's a question of perspective. One person sees there are four pieces of wood or log or whatever, and the other one kind of takes a look and says, no, there are only three. So when we misunderstand reality, that is also connected to thoughts, our own thoughts and others' thoughts. And then there are contradictory thoughts which are more of opinions but are not facts, as in they originate in extremely false premises. For instance, the blue button is true and it's written on red, and the red button is false is written on the blue. So I mean, there are these conflicting, extremely contradictory aspects that a person is seeing around them, and how and where does a person find that space to express their thoughts. So how do we get out of this trap is something that we need to see. As mentioned in the beginning, it's not something that happens overnight. It is something that you have to really work hard at. And the how of it is more like a jigsaw puzzle, which you're kind of, taking your time to fit. But the aspects that are in this jigsaw puzzle basically talk about four aspects. That the first one is investigate. Take responsibility for your own logical thinking. And again, not just thinking, but logical thinking. The pros, the cons, the plus, the minus, all of that comes into it. So first is investigate, kind of really become this crime reporter who kind of is a detective and goes deep into that thought. Not every thought, but a thought that is important to you. Then face it with reason. Then put these two pieces together, investigating and reasoning together. Then analyze it further. It's like proofreading. It's like the proofreader is the one who kind of gives the final okay. In the erstwhile days, no longer. Now you have everybody typing and kind of sending all kind of rubbish also on WhatsApp, and there is nobody. So we are again to check it, and we are again perpetrating rumors, we are perpetrating hatred, a whole lot of stuff. So investigate, reason, analyze, and then review. And if you are convinced, then you can go on to step 2, as in sharing that thought or putting it out there for someone to give you a feedback. So this again, please don't take it as a part of psychology, but the aspect is how do we change it? How do we change the thought? Now, in psychology, there is something called REBT, which we are not going to go into detail of. But here, if you take a look, it's just A, B, C, D, E. So every thought or every aspect, there is an activating event. So the first question that you should ask yourself is, what set off the thought? What is it that set off this thought in you, right? So you're going to investigate it. Is it in sync or in conflict with my own belief system? Or am I actually just towing the line because somebody says it? Consequences, again, you are going to weigh the pros and the cons. Then you dispute every irrational belief. If something is said to you which you don't honestly believe in, then what are the odds is the question that should come to your mind. And change irrational to rational. How do you change an absolutely irrational to a rational thought is that moment about how to act. I would also like to share over here that there are a lot of things. Of course, it's not completely connected to the topic today, but there are a lot of things that we push under the carpet when we talk about it in education. There has been furor in several states over the aspect of sex education. Now, if we took it as how to act, if every person took on that responsibility as an adult, that how is it that we bring about this change, that the children know a lot more than we do or ever did, how can we still make this something very real for them, right? But what we do, we adopt the path of escapism. No, 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 we're not going to talk much about sex education. No, 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 we're not going to talk about this. So how to act gets affected, throwing everything completely out of gear, and then you have the snowballing of all kind of thoughts happening in the environment with young adults, teachers, everybody. So the steps is, how do you choose, is how do you become a person who can think the I won't even use the word right thoughts, is how to think, is first become aware of the self, that little figure self inside the triangle. What is it that I want to do? You should become aware, then take a step, that is you choose, not physically, but in your mind. What is the thought? What is it that I want to say? What is it that I want to do? Then you act upon it, and then you reflect. So ages ago, so-called intellectual as well as saint, the younger generation may not resonate with Swami Vivekanand, but he was one of a kind. And he said something very interesting, that talk to yourself once in a day. Otherwise, you may miss meeting an excellent person in this world. So what he means by this is that we are floundering around us. Our thoughts are kind of these absolute, loose missiles in our head, missiles, as the Americans would say. They are loose, absolutely loose in our head, kind of moving in every direction, blowing us from one place to the other. And what is the final result? When we look in the mirror, we say, oh my God, that much of time has passed and my thought still remains the same. I'm unable to change it. So when you talk to yourself, you always get the answer that you want. But are we giving these opportunities for even teachers, children, adults, anybody to talk to themselves? Are we giving them a chance to reflect? Are they becoming, proficient enough to become aware, choose, act? These are questions that we should ask ourselves in the disruptive forum. I would like to conclude with, there is no happiness, with something, a quote by Albert Camus. And he said that there is no happiness if the things we believe in are different than the things we do. Now, why I say this at the end, and I started with this poem about what thoughts are just raw energy, that as teachers, as mentors, as people who are out there capable of making some difference, and I'm not saying it from any point of, ego, that, okay, only a certain number of people can bring about a change. Everyone can bring about a change, period. That's it. But if there is a dichotomy, if there is a duality, if there is a very, very vast difference between the things that we believe in and the things that we do, what's going to happen? The first person that's going to be afflicted is you yourself. So it's like you're crossing a river with your feet in two boats, right? And what's going to happen? You're going to fall flat when the tide changes or when the speed changes or whatever. So the important aspect to remember is that these thoughts are your own. Nobody can take away your thoughts from you. Okay? But we are not venturing into the world of negative thoughts right now. That would have taken another hour or so, about talking about, suicidal tendencies or all of that. We're just talking about thoughts as simple little droplets that come to our mind every now and then, and kind of become the gears, or they become the fuel that stokes our own fire and kind of helps us to stoke that of others. So on this note, I would like to conclude and pass on the thing to back to Preena.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much for the lovely, lovely session. I truly enjoyed. Very important topic, especially at this time, when we all are going through this phase of Corona. We are stuck. And still, things are not normal as they were before this. And beautifully explain everything how thoughts actually play a major role in our lives, which we often don't focus much, we don't believe in. They are things, they are powerful, and they're running through your mind, and they can actually help you achieve the life of your dreams.
Absolutely.
So we absolutely need to have such environment where we are not affecting anybody's self-esteem in every aspect of our lives. And beautiful session, ma'am. It was amazingly explained. Every slide was with something. And what if I ask you, like, this is not an overnight job. We cannot do it very quickly to change our thoughts. But if I ask
Yes.
you a very quick, a kind of a magic wand, you can just do something and change your thoughts from negative to positive. What can we do? A simple 2-3 steps that we can do.
Yeah, so see, like I said, if you have the right role models in your environment, that is one aspect. Okay, like earlier, a lot of reading used to happen, right? Now, this may
Right.
sound quaint, this may sound old school, but that's not true because each of us is looking for motivation from somewhere or the other, right? And
True.
what
True.
everybody has to understand that thoughts are real. Please, again, we are not talking about schizophrenia, we're talking about thoughts being absolutely real. So there could be a moment where
Right.
I'm really really low, right, and I'm thinking about the
Right.
most negative things. How, like you said so beautifully, what is that magic wand? Now, it may work for one person, it may not work for another person. One is music,
Right.
another is going out into nature. You see, when you look at everything around you, you realize the largeness or how humongous the rest of the world is, and you're this teeny weeny speck, right? So, I mean, it's more
Right.
like self
Right.
talk. Okay. Now, self talk may not always be the answer because you may end up talking something absolutely
Mhm.
silly to yourself. So, what do you do? So, reading
True.
is one, kind of picking up books that kind of are guiding you in a certain direction. Even listening to music, going out somewhere. And of course, if
Mhm.
there is a possibility of having a conversation with a good mentor, that makes it somewhere where you know that somebody will listen to you, where you can at least offload, your negative thoughts.
Right.
Then you
That
can go
where you
back
can
to,
trust and
kind of,
share.
yes, yes, and you can work on it. You can work on it.
Mhm.
I hope I've answered your question, Preena.
Yes, ma'am. I have lot many questions, but just because of short of time, we cannot.
Yes,
I
yes,
think I'll connect you
absolutely.
definitely, and I hope these tips and tricks reaches to maximum people, and they can apply in their lives to change
Absolutely.
positively.
Absolutely.
And
Yes, I hope so. The only thing that I would like to say on a parting note is that, like you said, I have evidence. You see, I have had cases of children where the power of words have turned their thoughts around. You see, or
okay,
sometimes just that moment of listening to them, so
right.
these are things which are totally possible. It's not something out there, it's not something which is impossible. Absolutely possible, but we all have to work for it collectively. That is important.
Yes, true that, and need
Yes,
more people like you to motivate everyone. Uh,
absolutely.
yes, thank you so very much for this lovely session, and thank you so much for giving us your precious time and joining us on this platform of Getty. We are very thankful on behalf of the entire team, and a big thanks to all the viewers as well for joining us. And we can say is stay strong, stay persistent, keep pushing. We all can achieve anything we want. as long as we are persistent, we can achieve anything. It's always, it's all in our mind, and will
It
always
begins with
be.
the thought.
Right. So I think it's time to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and share
Thank,
this video with all your friends and colleagues, to all the viewers. And thank you so much, ma'am, once again on behalf of
thank
Getty.
you. Thank
It
you,
was wonderful
Prina.
having
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, ma'am. Pleasure, ma'am. Bye bye.